Hey everyone, Chris here from Realridesharestories. On this channel, we do a lot of different things within the rideshare industry, so if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications. Also, give a good thumbs up for the video. Before we get started, if you have a crazy Uber or Lyft experience, whether you're a passenger or a driver, record it, send it my way, and maybe we can feature you on the channel. All eyes are on California right now with this legislation, with Uber and Lyft's push to oppose the legislation. A lot of videos on YouTube, a lot of people talking about it. Really, what's going to happen? I've voiced my opinion earlier with the speculation of what could happen with the change from independent contractor status to employment status. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure these things out. All you got to do is look at every other job out there and figure it out. But what I want to do is, there's an article that I came across that I was reading in Business Insider, very good article. So I'm going to read it right now with you guys and then kind of give my thoughts as well. And then I'm going to share my thoughts on the overall thing at the end on what's going on. So again, this is a Business Insider article. I'll leave a link in the description below. The name of the article is Uber and Lyft are fighting tooth and nail against a California bill that could make some drivers employees and bankrupt both companies. So it sounds a little clickbaity when it says bankrupting both companies, but the reality of the situation is it's still possible. It is actually possible to bankrupt the companies through a couple of different means. So some of the highlights of this article are proposed California law could classify ride-hailing drivers as employees instead of contractors based on a 3-part employment test. Wall Street analysts say that Uber and Lyft drivers are likely to pass the test and that the change could bankrupt both companies. Lyft maintains that it is committed to increasing driver pay, and executives from both companies outlined a plan for drivers in an op-ed last week. And then supporters of the bill say that Uber and Lyft are misleading drivers and the public about what the law could actually do. So you can see this is going to be talking about both sides of the story, whether you're for it, whether you're against it, whether you're with Uber and Lyft, whether you're with AB5, whatever you might be. It kind of goes into a lot of different things. So let's read it right now. And again, like I say, the full article, if you'd like to read it yourself or look into a little bit more, I'll leave a link in the description below. So it starts off, a trio of executives from Uber and Lyft wrote an op-ed last week in the San Francisco Chronicle responding to years of pleas from their drivers for a fairer shake. The bosses, Uber's CEO and Lyft founders, acknowledged that classifying as employees the more than 2 million drivers who empower the core function of their apps would be a devastating burden to their business. Instead, they proposed a system of worker-determined benefits like time paid off, retirement planning, and lifelong learning, all of which could allow drivers to maintain their independence. So let's break that down right quick. First, they acknowledged that classifying 2 million drivers, which there's over 2 million drivers, as employees would be a devastating burden to their business, which yes, it would. But let's break it down. Right now, it's just California. This isn't going to classify every single state. This isn't going to classify the rest of the world. This is just California. But with that being said, it's very possible other states could adopt that legislation and reclassify their ride-hailer drivers with Uber and Lyft or other companies as employees as well. And they could write different stipulations into it with what employment status might maintain or might need, where certain benefits might be necessary or things like that. So yes, they're taking the full aspect of the drivers, not just the state of California, where there's going to be a lot less than 2 million drivers in the state. Because I believe there's about almost 3 million drivers worldwide now. I could be wrong. That's what I heard through the grapevine. I didn't research that, so don't take my word for it. But, proposing a system of determined benefits like paid time off, retirement planning, lifelong learning, those are great. But instead of proposing something, put it into writing, make it happen. It's that simple. Drivers want better benefits. They want benefits. They want better pay. We all started, if you started long ago, getting a good mileage rate. And then they slowly scaled it back even more. Where now it's not even sometimes worth it to be out on the road. So yeah, that's a problem. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But that's when the behind-the-scenes fighting began. So shortly after the article was published, both Uber and Lyft began sending emails and push notifications to drivers, enlisting them in a corporate fight against the proposed California legislation that could change many drivers' independent contractor status to that of full-fledged employees. And a Lyft representative said that by Thursday, more than 30,000 emails had been sent by drivers to state legislators, adding that the company did not auto-populate any message for the drivers, meaning each driver had to write their own message in lieu of a pre-written call to action. And Uber urged drivers to sign a petition. So I've seen these emails both from Uber and Lyft. Lyft wanted you to contact legislators. Uber wanted you to sign a petition. And there's been quite a few videos I've seen on trying to sign a petition or not, and what you should do. I'm with a few other people out there. Hold off on signing the petition. See what Uber and Lyft are actually going to do. Because if you sign the petition, you're just signing and saying, no, I want to maintain my status and keep it as status quo. But this is a time where drivers can kind of step back and look at both sides, and then make the final decisions once things are a little bit more set in stone. Because right now, you can say, oh yeah, we'll give all these things, all these different benefits without any real action. And then who's to say down the road that they might not change that? So let's take a little bit of time and see what happens. Like I said, whether you're for it or against it, take a little bit of time to see what happens. I mean, obviously, if you're against it and you want to become an employee, don't sign the petition and don't get hold of your legislators. It's that simple. So now let's go into what's in the proposed legislation. So California AB5, which is officially titled Worker Status, Employees, and Independent Contractors, would enshrine in law a three-part test to determine the status of a worker. That test was originally used last year in a landmark California Supreme Court ruling that became synonymous with the company involved named Diamond. Don't know if that's right or saying that right or not. It doesn't matter. But to hire a worker as an independent contractor, as defined by the bill, the job description must match the following three parts of the ABC test. So A, the person is free from the control and direction of the hiring entity in connection with the performance of the work, both under the contract and for the performance of the work and in fact. Again, this is legal jargon, so not necessarily what most people can understand. B, the person performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. And C, the person is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature that is involved in the work performed. So those are the three parts of the test, where a lot of Wall Street analysts say that drivers would probably pass that test. So given the nature of the I can't speak right now, sorry. Given the nature of the ride-hailing drivers' jobs, it is likely they would not be considered contractors under the Dynamex test. Specifically, analysts at Barclays say the second part of the test, B, would be the main sticking point. So again, that's the person performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. You could argue it that they're a tech company, but they've positioned themselves as a ride-hailing company. And I don't want to dive too far into that because, again, I don't want to give out any false information or misleading information. So this is what Barclays analysts have said. And then this is, let's get into what it will mean for the drivers. So if passed, the law would help drivers in California achieve what the group of drivers have unsuccessfully attempted to do in jurisdictions around the world for years, to secure benefits and treatment entitled to full-fledged employees. Without these protections, drivers face low wages and labor abuses, according to Gig Workers Rising, which is a group representing workers on multiple gig economy platforms, including Postmates, Uber, and Amazon. They have no way to organize and are denied crucial benefits like health insurance, disability, overtime, or workers' comp. Drivers face unsafe working conditions and no recourse when they're deactivated, which all of that is true. First of all, you don't get benefits like health insurance, disability, overtime. You see a lot of people who post videos that are $1,000, $2,000 per week, and then you look at their hourly or how many hours they worked, and it'll say 60, 70. So I've seen 80 hours. That's a lot of hours you're pulling for driving. And if you're not getting paid overtime, that could be an issue. And workers' comp. If you get injured due to an accident, or even if your car goes out for maintenance or something and you're out for a week or so, that can be pretty detrimental to some drivers, especially if they're driving full-time with Uber and Lyft. And the big thing here is unsafe working conditions and no recourse when they're deactivated. That's huge. Driver safety is a big thing. So that's a major thing that they highlight. And then again, when drivers are deactivated, is it a false report? Which most of the time it's a false report. It's somebody who's scamming the system, trying to actually get a free ride, and they don't care what happens to the driver. All they want is the free ride because, hey, guess what? I can go on my app later and order a new ride with a new driver. Doesn't really matter, and try doing the same thing down the road. So yeah, that's a real problem there. All right, a 2018 study by the Economic Policy Institute found that Uber drivers took home the equivalent of $9.21 in hourly wages after accounting for vehicle cost, health insurance, and any other benefits that would be earned by traditional employees. So when you see I made $28 an hour, yeah, you make $28 an hour gross, but that doesn't include net pay. And that net pay is taking out things like taxes, taking out things like benefits, taking out things like, auto maintenance costs and anything like that. So Lyft says in its national hourly average for drivers is north of $30 per hour while en route to a fare or while carrying passengers. See, here's the problem. When they do that, they're not accounting for the time that you're sitting around waiting for something, waiting for a ride to come in. So you could be waiting there 20, 30 minutes. If you're at the airport, you could be up to an hour or so waiting there for a fare. So they don't take into account that time that you're waiting. They only take into account the time that, hey, I got a ding for a passenger. I accepted that ride. So now the timer starts. Okay, now I'm going to the ride. I'm picking them up. Now I'm actually taking the ride and making money. And then the ride stops, and hey, guess what? The timer stops. So yeah, you can change that statistic. If you want to know what my actual thing is, where you include the time waiting for a ride, On a weekly basis, I probably average around 22 to 25, sometimes 27 per hour. Again, that's gross. That is not taking into account driver maintenance or driver fee, maintenance cost, doesn't take into account gas, taxes, everything else. So that's just gross pay, not net pay. So yeah, there's some issues with that statistic right there. And I'm glad that in the article they actually talk about that. But I also want to break that down, because for people who are just reading that and don't realize, they're saying that the drivers are making more than $30 per hour when that includes en route and the fare itself. That doesn't include the time that you're sitting there waiting for a ride. So employment status could also give drivers access to collective bargaining rights. Their status as contractors has hampered efforts in lawsuits for years. But the companies are just extremely opposed to it. So Uber and Lyft maintain that classifying their drivers as employees would be the death knell to their business. They're probably not wrong. That's in the article. That's also my opinion, and I think a few other people's opinions too when they look into the depth of it. But in California alone, reclassifying drivers as employees could cost Uber and Lyft $3,625 per driver each year. Wall Street analysts at Barclays have estimated. All the associated costs, including Medicare, FICA, and other payroll items, could total $290 million. Now, I don't know if they're using this as just employee or just drivers that could be employees in California, or if this would be worldwide. They don't really break it down. So again, the statistic behind it, I'm not exactly too sure. And they don't give that information. Of course, they're going to try to use the highest numbers. So I'm assuming that this is going to be the number of drivers worldwide versus just California. But again, this is me speculating, me questioning the statistic, because again, it doesn't give you all of the information, and you want to make sure you question statistics that doesn't give you all the information. So beyond higher wages, ride-hailing companies would be responsible for half, 6.2% of employees' Social Security and Medicare, 1.45% tax, as well as the costs for administering any employee benefits. Examples are healthcare and 401ks. The bank analyst said in a note to clients. So with the drivers' earnings and incentives running in an estimated 78% and 76% of gross bookings for Uber and Lyft, respectively, a 25% in driver wage benefit cost would essentially drive take rates to zero, absent rate increases to riders. So if everything stayed the same, except for these changes, then it's saying that the profit margin that Uber and Lyft would make would essentially go down to zero. And again, that's misleading a little bit, because if you look at your earnings, 78 to 76%, overall, it might be that. I don't know for sure, but it could be that. I don't have a problem with that. But here's where it gets a little tricky. They're saying that if a 25% increase in driver wage benefit would essentially take the rate down to zero. So what people are saying is, if you take 78% and 76% and add 25%, a lot of people are going to just add that, which means you'd have about 100 or 101%, when that's not really the case. 78% plus 25% really brings it up. It's not about 25%. It might bring it to like 92% or something, but still it's essentially driving profit down to zero, and that's absent of a rate increase to riders. But the way they worded it, it's a little weird there. So again, remember, percentages are not in whole numbers. It's a percent, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, And again, this is without rate increases. I'm going to tell you, if they reclassify drivers, more than likely it's going to be rate increases for for passengers, just so the companies can absorb the shock. They have to have some sort of contingency, I'm assuming. But again, I'm assuming. We think an adverse ruling on the contract workforce issue would potentially bankrupt both Uber and Lyft, they concluded. So that, again, they're not taking into account any rate increases for passengers or anything like that. They're keeping it as is, which, again, they have to do that in order to stay alive. A Lyft representative shared the following statement with Business Insider. Lyft is advocating for an approach in line with the interests of our driver community by modernizing century-old labor laws to make it difficult to provide both flexibility and benefits. The goal is to preserve drivers' independence while guaranteeing a minimum earnings floor, establishing worker-directed portable benefits, and creating a new association partnership with labor groups to administer the benefits that best meet drivers' individual needs. So this is Representative Ginn, what Lyft said, and I'll read that one more time. Lyft is advocating for an approach in line with the interests of our driver community by modernizing century-old labor laws that make it difficult to provide both flexibility and benefits. The goal is to preserve drivers' independence while guaranteeing a minimum earnings floor, establishing worker-directed portable benefits, and creating a new association in partnership with labor groups to administer the benefits that best meet drivers' individual needs. So that sounds all good, and Uber did not respond for requests to comment. So now let's get into the article's just a little bit more. The bill's sponsors and supporters say the companies are misleading drivers. So this is the other side to what Uber and Lyft are saying. Workplace flexibility is completely at the discretion of employers. Whether you're classified as an employee or misclassified as an independent contractor, California Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, the bill's sponsor, said on Twitter, noting in AB5 prevents Uber or Lyft from continuing to offer their workers flexibility. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that a little wrong. Nothing in AB5 prevents Uber and Lyft from continuing to offer their workers flexibility. You're right, it's up to that, but going on and off, it's very difficult. I mean, if I go on both apps at the same time and 3 minutes go by and I get a ding, say on Uber to go for a ride, I got to shut off Lyft. Does that mean I'm getting paid on both platforms? So if I'm sitting there waiting for a ride to come in, I could be waiting there a half hour. I could be waiting there 10 minutes. I could be waiting there 13 seconds. Am I getting paid on both Uber and Lyft? It doesn't make any sense when you do it that way. I've also seen Uber and Lyft both say in their emails that flexibility will probably be out the door, as well as the possibility of maybe being able to choose both. So I've seen that already. Again, this is all speculation, and it can be fear-mongering for some, but you really got to break it down and see. I just don't understand how that would be, though. Like, if I'm on both apps at the same time and I keep 100% flexibility as it is now, and I turn both on, does that mean I'm getting paid doubly now from both companies? I'm not really sure. These are all questions that are going to have to be answered and figured out. Do you have to be online for a certain time before it'll backlog it or something? I don't know. All right. A Lyft representative maintained that nothing in the bill directly says ride-hailing companies would be forced to reduce flexibility, but added that it's a natural byproduct of such labor laws and that driver freedom would be cut. So this is directly from Lyft itself saying that that will happen. Same thing with Uber is probably pretty much the same, and they've posted it in different forms already. So Gig Workers Rising again rejected those claims. Everything that they said in their op-ed was a watered down version of what demands drivers have been making for months, the group said. They're fear-mongering with drivers about losing flexibility and jobs when the truth is you can have both, real wages, benefits, and flexibility. All right, I'd love to get in contact with somebody from Gig Workers Rising. Maybe we do a live stream or something. So anybody from Gig Workers Rising, if you're watching this video, hit me up, let me know. Because I really want to understand a little bit more how you can keep the flexibility. Yes, you could do it, but again, like I said, are you going to get paid on both if you're on both at the same time? Will they limit it to that, where you can only be on one platform at the same time? Who knows? There's a lot of things again still in the air, and a lot of people are very far in between, or very far on either side of it. They're not really in between. There's a lot of drivers though that are up in the air, not really sure what's going on. But again, that's the article from Business Insider. It covered both sides, which I liked, because it talked about the employee side, talked about the bill side, it talked about the Uber and Lyft side. There's a lot of different things. So again, as of right now, any company that if they don't adapt to change, yeah, that could be a real problem down the road. Something could happen where it could bankrupt their companies by having to switch over to employees, by maintaining a minimum wage or whatever it might be, the benefits included, whatever it is. Also, what's going to happen with vehicle costs? Are they going to be offset by Uber or Lyft? Are they going to give a maintenance fee? What's going to happen? There's a lot of things still that need to be answered. And as every day goes on and gets a little bit closer, you're going to start seeing some more and more truths come out. That's why I didn't want to make a video for a little while, at least to get some of the dust settling a little bit. But as the dust settles, you're going to start seeing other questions arise. And that's exactly what it is. So here's my final thoughts on this so far into it. After reading that article, if I don't really want to be an employee. I don't. I like the flexibility. And you're right. With driving or with contract or with whatever type of work, it's up to the employees, or up to the employers, which in this case is Uber or Lyft, and they can just say, no, you can't have the same flexibility, you can't have the same thing. They can make those rules. So it's something that again, it's all speculation where, Gig Workers Rising says, no, you can have the flexibility still, but it's going to be back again to Uber and Lyft. Also, all drivers that are driving right now might not have jobs if they have to apply or something down the road. There's a lot of different things out there. Also, the application process right now, it's if you want to become a driver and you pass the background checks and you fill out the application and all those things, you can sign up and you can become an Uber or Lyft driver. So if you're in between jobs or if you're looking for some extra money, it's a great way to do it. So will that change? It's very possible. There's a lot of things, like I said, that the dust settled a little bit, which just raises more questions. So like I said, I don't want to be an independent contractor, but if I can keep the flexibility where I can work both apps at the same time when I want, I might be a little bit more open to employment status. If it guarantees certain rights, if it guarantees certain protections, if it guarantees certain things, I would definitely be able to sway my opinion a little bit more towards the employment. The only thing is, I like the freedom, and I don't see Uber or Lyft continuing to keep the flexibility, since they flat out said that it's going to not really happen. They could change their mind. They could do something. Who knows? I do hope that Uber and Lyft do take this seriously and really do change certain things. Lyft has just announced that in Hawaii on June 27th, I believe it is, that they're going to start paying drivers from the moment they accept the fare through the pickup all the way through the ride itself. So that's a very interesting fact. So it's not just going to be long pickup fee that Uber has, where it takes so far to get that premium pickup, whether it's distance or time. But I think one of the biggest protections that we need as drivers is against false reports and false claims and this bullshit deactivation. That is one of the biggest problems. There's a lot of drivers that are getting deactivated for things that are false reports or false claims because the passenger is trying to scam the system. So it's a problem. Also, just deactivating drivers for sometimes no cause whatsoever. So, sometimes having collective bargaining rights can be a good thing. I know our local NFTA bus drivers, they fall under a collective bargaining agreement with the city, and there's a lot of protections in place for them. They can actually hit people. I'm not saying that protection should be in there, but when you're dealing with mass transit and you're on the road and you're this big giant bus and somebody stands too close to the street and the mirror sticks out and they're not paying attention and they get hit, they're protected for their job for a little bit, even with some bad things. And I'm not saying that we should be protected for doing bad things or give us the reason to do it. No, drivers should always be professional and going where they can make money. So I think that there's a few things that still need to be looked at, still need some more dust to settle. When it comes to that petition, I'm with some other drivers out there. Wait, hold off, don't sign the petition just yet. See what is going to happen, because like I said, once AB5 passed and it was out of the blue, it put up so much dust storm that you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. Now that the dust is settling and you're starting to see Uber and Lyft come out and say certain things, you're starting to see gig workers, what is that called again? Sorry. Gig workers rising. You're starting to see them talk. You're starting to see legislation talk a little bit more. You're starting to see analysts figure everything out. So now you're starting to see all of these different mediums projecting things and talking about it in different aspects. So the main thing is figuring out what is actually going to be happening. So again, I like this article. I thought it was a good breakdown. Check the link in the description below to go over that article. Right now, as is, from what I hear from Uber and Lyft, from their standpoint, I want to continue keeping my independent contractor status, but I do want more protections. I do want driver safety. I do want more, a better pay rate would be great. Benefits would be good. I just went to Vegas. So some paid time off, if you can work and get some paid time off so you can enjoy time. Like I said earlier, you see people on YouTube who work 60, 70, 80 hours driving. There's more to life than just driving and hustling. Sometimes you need that break. You need that time off. You need to enjoy. So going on vacation, taking some time off, and still being able to make some money while you're out, or taking care of business, whether it be for at your home, for your children, whatever it is, you got to make sure you still keep time for that. So yeah, if there's certain driver protections in place that are guaranteed and they stay there. Also another thing, why not have more reach out gig workers rising, where you can reach out further and just kind of get more drivers on board. Go to local events, talk to drivers, whatever it might be. Go on Facebook forums, start trying to recruit more and more drivers to come on, so that way if drivers do stay independent contractors, they might have almost a collective bargaining or a union-esque way of doing things. There's a lot of different things that can be done still. So yeah, this is still an ongoing process, guys. We don't really know what's going on. I know this is a longer video. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of speculation involved. There's a lot of things that we just don't know yet. So we can't be hard pressed one way or the other. Like I said at the very beginning when it first came out, I was against this legislation. But if I can continue my flexibility, if I can continue getting certain things that maybe the status of my thoughts could change. Right now, I'm just on the fence. But from what I've seen, where Lyft has come out and said flexibility will be out the window, Uber has said flexibility will be out the window, that's going to change the game for a lot of people. That's also going to change the game just in general. So yeah, it's this weird, crazy thing that I don't really want to know, but I do want Uber and Lyft to step up and start doing real things for drivers, because yes, drivers are the core. If every driver on the road out there said, hey, guess what? We're stopping driving. We're not going to drive. Uber and Lyft would lose 100% of the money because there's nobody that's going around. There's nobody driving. Obviously they have like bikes and e-scooters, but it would be severely limited and cut. So yeah, you want to make sure that you take care of your drivers since they're the backbone. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in another video because this video is going on close to 40 minutes and it's time to cut it off. So if you guys have any questions or other comments, let's make it constructive. If you're on one side or the other, that's cool, but give some reasons why, what's going on. But yeah, comment below, let me know your thoughts. If you've heard anything further, anything new, comment below. Anybody in California, what have you heard? Because you guys are literally in the zone of conflict right now, I guess you could call it, or the war zone or ground zero, whatever you want to call it. That's where you guys are at. So what are you doing right now? What's going on? Comment below, let me know. I really want to know. I'm trying to stay up on this. I'm going to make more videos, not as often, only because like I said, there's a lot of dust settling. There's still a lot of speculation. There's nothing that's real concrete going yet, but we will see with time as time goes on. So with that being said, that's the end of today's video. Any questions, any comments, anything, comment below, let me know. Give a thumbs up for the video. Also, ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. As always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, and we'll see you next time.